So if you're an HDB flat owner in Singapore, you've probably thought about its future. We are gonna dive into the really complex issue, the Voluntary Early Redevelopment Scheme. Better known as VERS, we will explore what it could actually mean for you and your home. You know, it all comes down to this one huge question. When that 99-year lease finally runs out, what really happens to your home? The home you've poured your life into, the neighborhood you know and love? For the longest time, there just wasn't a clear answer. And look, this is not some minor detail. We are talking about a huge question hanging over Singapore's entire public housing system. It affects hundreds of thousands of us. That's why it's a genuine source of anxiety for so many families going forward. And that brings us to the government's proposed solution to this whole dilemma. Enter VERS. Let us break down what this scheme is all about from currently available information. The most important word here is right there in the name, voluntary. VERS is basically an offer from the government to buy back and redevelop older estates before the lease runs out. But, and this is the absolute key, it only happens if the residents of the estate actually vote for it. It's their collective choice. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this just like SERS, or the Selective en Bloc Redevelopment Scheme? Well, it's really important to get this straight. They're very, very different. SERS is compulsory. The government picks the site and that's that. VERS, on the other hand, is a choice made by residents. And here's the trade-off. In exchange for having that choice, the compensation for VERS is expected to be lower. It is probably quite a bit lower than for SERS because the flats will be older. Alright. Let's look at the bright side first. Why would a whole community vote yes to VERS? What's the promise here? What's the potential win for homeowners? Well, it's all about really trying to tackle that core anxiety about decaying lease. First off, it gives you certainty. You get a clear exit plan before your flat's value really starts to tank. It also promises a total refresh by moving to a newer home. We're talking new infrastructure, better amenities, a whole new living environment. And, yeah, while the payout might be less than SERS, it's meant to be fair enough to give you the funds for a new place. But maybe most importantly, it puts the power to decide right in the hands of the community. When you get right down to it, all of these potential benefits are designed to fight against this one thing, that ticking clock, that 99-year countdown. VERS is basically an attempt to give homeowners an off-ramp before their property's value gets closer and closer to zero. But, you know, it's never that simple, is it? For every potential plus, there are some pretty big risks and challenges to think about. So let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this whole equation. And here's where it gets tricky. The biggest problem right now is just uncertainty. Without any hard numbers on compensation, it just creates a lot of anxiety. Then there's the social fallout. It's not so simple to get an entire neighborhood to agree on something this big. Things can get ugly and it can really strain friendships. And what if the final offer just isn't enough for you? We also can't forget the massive social disruption. People will be literally uprooted. This really gets to the human side of it. This isn't just a financial deal. For so many people, especially older folks, moving means leaving behind everything, a lifetime of memories, their friends, their support systems. That human cost is a huge, huge factor. This brings us to a kind of paradox. The whole voluntary thing is VERS' biggest selling point. But you know what? It might also be its biggest flaw. If a community just can't get enough people to vote yes, they could get stuck in a total impasse. This would defeat the whole purpose, leaving them right back where they started, an aging flat and a lease that's still running down. So how do we make sense of all of this? It's pretty clear that VERS isn't a simple good or bad policy. It's really all about a fundamental trade-off. You can really boil the entire dilemma down to this. On one side, you've got the promise, certainty, a fresh start, and a democratic choice. But on the other side, you have the peril, uncertainty, and the real possibility of community conflict. There is also the undeniable stress of being uprooted. Every single neighborhood is gonna have to weigh these for themselves. So what's the path forward here? For VERS to have any chance of actually working, it seems like three things are absolutely essential. First, total transparency from the government on the money. Second, real empathy for the human concerns of residents. And third, finding a way to encourage constructive dialogue, not just arguments. And we have to end on a really important note here, a disclaimer. Everything we've talked about is based on what we know so far. The official final framework for VERS is still being worked out. The details could still change. So think of this as a look at the potential, not the final set-in-stone policy. So we'll leave you with this thought. VERS gives the power of choice to the community, and that's a really powerful idea. But it also raises a tough question. When it's something as personal, as emotional, and as valuable as your own home, can everyone truly agree on what it's worth?